So it's hour 3. If we look at what we've built so far, basically the pages to do with our store, these would be pages that a customer coming to the music store would access. They want to shop for music, so first they're going to look at our list of genres, then they're going to pick something, and we're going to modify some of these pages over the next few weeks. We're going to allow them to look up the details and then add to a shopping cart. But we also need pages so that the owner of the music store can manage the products, that they can add, edit, and delete the albums and the genres. So right now, for example, there's no way, if we want to modify this list, we have no way to do it other than going into the database. And if we're building this website for someone else, we're not going to give them access to the database. They need pages in the application to manage this. So we're going to make a new controller, and we're going to use Visual Studio to automatically generate all of the views so that we can create, read, update, and delete any genres. So the tool we're going to use for this is called a scaffold. So a scaffold means it's code that is automatically built for us that we can then customize, but we don't have to write it all from scratch ourselves. So in Visual Studio, I'm going to right-click, go to my controllers, and I'm going to add a new controller. Now the store controller we built manually. This controller we're going to use the scaffolding to build. So click controller. Now when we built our store controller a few weeks ago, we picked an empty controller and we've written an index and a browse method in there and we've created the views. This time we want to use scaffolding, so we're going to pick this third option, MVC5 controller with views using Entity Framework. And you can read from the description what this will do. It'll build a new controller, but that controller automatically will have all the actions for doing create, read, update, delete, and list, and it will also automatically create all of the views for this. Awesome. So we'll pick that option and click add. So we get this dialog, and the dialog says, what model is being used for this? So here we'll pick our genre model. So we're using this controller to manage the genres in the store. The data context is our music store model. We'll leave all of these checked, and then it's asking, is there a layout template? Which there is. We want to pick the same template as all our other views. So click the little browse button, and inside of views and shared, we'll pick our layout template. Same template we've been using for the other views. So it uses Bootstrap, uses our header and footer and jQuery and all that good stuff. So we'll pick that, and we're going to change the name. We're not going to call it Genres Controller. We'll call it Store Manager Controller. Actually, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me think about it. Actually, we will call this one Genres Controller. So this will be used so that we can manage the genres in the database. So click add. And it's going to take a minute, and we'll see what Visual Studio does for us. So it builds the genres controller, and it opens it automatically. And look at all of the methods that are here. Here's the index page. It gets a list of all the genres and displays them. If we want to look up a single genre, it passes in an ID number, uses the genre model and a find method to find that one genre. We have two methods, a get and a post, for create. The get create will show an empty form, and the post will save a new genre to the database. So we can see the code that's here. It creates a new genre, adds it to our model, and calls save changes. That will save a new one. We've got edit and update and delete. So all of this code is fully functional. We can make changes, and we will make some changes eventually in the next one we build. But also look down inside of views. We now have a genres folder, and we've got an index view, and a create view, and an edit view. And all of these should be functional. So if we build our solution, try these out, and we should be able to add, edit, view, and delete records. So to get the index view, we just change our URL and go to /genres. That will run the index method. So here we get, here's our index. So it includes the name and description. And there's all the links we need to manage the data in this table. We can create a new one. If I click create, watch what happens. Actually, I'll put in a name and a description and try my create button. And my controller saved it to the database. We can edit it. So I should be able to save those changes. So the scaffolding writes all of this working code for us. Now I could go in and delete it. And it gives me, shows me the record and just asks me to confirm that yes, I want to delete. And if I delete, it runs the delete method in our controller and it's gone. Now that was rather easy, wasn't it? So what's the benefit of this? Why did Microsoft give us this, do you suppose? Would you want to use this feature if you had to build a new website? Raj, you think so?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, why would you use it?
It saves time, I think.
Absolutely. Probably any table we work with, there needs to be create, read, update, and delete, right? What if we don't want there to be a delete? What could we do? So in here, we don't want people to be able to delete anything out of the database. How would we do that? Yeah, we'd go to the controller. I'm not going to, but if we didn't want people to delete, we would just remove those two delete methods, and we could remove the delete view, and then there'd be no way to delete. So this doesn't mean this is a finished application like this, but it's a starting point. It saves us time from manually having to write all of those methods in the controller and create each of these views individually. So we can, this is a starting point, and then we make changes. So for example, let's say in this list, I would suggest we don't want to show the description column. It's too big, right? So we can just get rid of it in the index view. So if we open up our views, genres, open up the index view, let's say we don't want this column. We just want the genre name. I can take out the heading. I can take out the description column. We want to add maybe the bootstrap striping and hover effects. So we can add those back, table striped and table hover. And instead of index, maybe we want to change the heading. So it says genres. So our page now, oops, I didn't save my last change. So my heading says genres. We've gotten rid of that description because it makes the page look too big and awkward. I also want a little heading up here above my links. So notice that there's an empty set of TH tags here. I'm going to put in a heading that says actions above the edit details and delete links. So that's a little better. So the scaffold, the point of the scaffold is to save us time, and it's a starting point. So we can change any of the logic in the controller that we want, and we can change anything we want to with how the views work. But the point is we use the scaffolding as a starting point to save us time and get things built quickly, and then we'll change them. And all of this stuff is already fully functional. So for example, notice though on our store page, right, we managed to sort this list alphabetically. In the scaffolded code, we're back to being ordered by genre ID. So if we don't like this, Ryan, you suggested earlier this list would make more sense if it was alphabetical. So we can go into the index method in the scaffolded controller and we can add that order by. So we'll go back to our genre controller that we built. So in the index method, let's add the order by, dot order by. What do we do here? To this dot order by. What did we do? Right, I'm missing a bracket. Thank you. I guess I could just read the error message. That would have helped. Thank you, Alex. So we can take the default method, the default code in the index method, and customize it the way we want to. So it works the way we want it to work. So now when we refresh our genres index, it should be alphabetical by name. So when I build and refresh, this list is now sorted A to Z. So I can't think of any good reason not to use the scaffolding, really. We should always use it to build our controllers and build our views, and then we can start to change them. So we're going to try one more scaffold. So we've made, I'm going to close up all my files. I've got lots of stuff open. We're going to make one more scaffold controller, this time for managing the albums. So we can add new albums. We could change the price. Next week, we'll look at how to upload a cover image. We'll do a file upload. But we're going to add one more controller and one more set of views with scaffolding. And then we'll stop for today, and I'm going to give you your assignment. So again, we'll right-click controllers. We'll click Add Controller. And again, we'll pick MVC5 controller with views. This time our model, notice it remembers the data context and the layout from the last one. This time we want the album model. But we're going to call the name, we'll call it Store Manager Controller. So it's based on the model, the album's model. It's using our same layout template, and we'll call it Store Manager. So again, it will build the controller with all of the methods we need, and it will build all the views. The model is album. So we're going to use this to manage the albums in the store. So when the scaffold is finished, you can build. And then we should be able to go to /store manager in the browser, and it should bring up a list of all the albums, and we can create, edit, and delete. So here's our store manager now, and we have all the same features. We can create. Notice even because every album has a genre and an artist, the scaffolding automatically builds the drop-down list for us when we go to add a new album, because it recognizes the relationships in our models. So again, we can edit, delete. So there's a few things on this page we should change as well. Right? Our title doesn't look very good. It says index. Notice our our column headings. The first one says name, and the second one says name. Our price is not currency, and we can probably hide the album art URL. We could probably get rid of that column. So let's customize this view a little bit, and then we'll stop for today. Next week, we'll add things like sorting, the ability to search for albums by title, and then we'll also change it so that next week we can upload an image here, have it display the cover image, and we can upload and replace it with another photo. We'll do that stuff next week. Also, some of these titles don't look good, right? We don't want to say to our user, have titles that say genre ID, artist ID, and album art URL with no space. So we'll look at how do we customize that stuff too. So let's open up our store manager index view. So notice in views, we now have store manager folder. Here's index. So we'll change the heading to albums. We'll apply our class. So it automatically pulls this artist name and genre name in the first two headings. I'm just going to get rid of those and just hard code them in, artist and genre. So if you don't like the names that it gives you for the columns, that's fine, or the labels, you can just replace them. It's just static HTML. We're going to get rid of the album art column. We don't need it on this page. And again, we'll make our last heading say actions, like on our previous view. So you can see, so Visual Studio highlights in green all the lines we've changed. Wherever you see green here, we changed something. We'll get rid down here of the album art URL. And again, we're going to format this as currency. So we'll apply that currency format to our price. So our page should look a little better now. All the headings are meaningful. We've gotten rid of some stuff we didn't really need, and our price should be formatted properly. Our price didn't format. Our titles are better. They say artist, genre. I'll have to figure out what happened with our price. I may have to do this a different way. Oh, yes, I think I do. Bear with me for a second. I'm just going to check my repository from last week. I may have to come back to that one. Okay, I'll leave out my currency for just for now. We'll fix that up. Next week. So our scaffolding is a great starting place. It saves us tons of time, writes all the create, read, update, delete code, and builds all the pages we need. And then we just change them as it makes sense for us to change them. So with that in mind, I'd like to go over assignment 1, which is now on Blackboard. Here it is, and I will show you a little demo. Okay. So you need to build a new application with a new database for this. It's 20% of your final grade. It'll be due at noon on Tuesday, not Monday at midnight because of the holiday Monday. So to submit, you need to add the link to your GitHub repository. It needs to be private, and make sure you add me, there's my GitHub username, as a collaborator, okay, so that I have access to it. If you don't add me as a collaborator and you make your repository private, I can't see your code. I can't mark what I can't see. You also just have to give me a link to the live site running on Azure. You have to do this on your own. Don't do it with a friend. Please don't give me the same project as somebody else with some of the words changed. Okay. So in everybody's assignment, each of you has to build your own project. So you will decide what you want to build. You have to build a database with 2 tables in it. Tables should look different, right? Even if 2 students build the same kind of application, the tables won't be the same because you have to decide for yourself what to put in your tables. So I want you to decide what the purpose of the application will be. So you could build a homework tracker, you could build a cars database, you can build anything that interests you at all. Cricket team manager, I don't care. Okay. But in the database, so you need 2 tables. And the process of how to create those tables, well, we did it today in Management Studio. And all the lesson is on YouTube. So you just do table new, and you can use the visual designer to build your 2 tables. Each table needs an ID field that's a primary key, and the ID should automatically be assigned using the identity property. Okay, the user shouldn't have to type in an ID for each record. The database should assign it. So you decide what you're going to build, create a new database on Azure, and build 2 tables. That's the first part. There should be a relationship. It should be some kind of one-to-many relationship. So for example, I had a student, I started marking my other class. One student, his tables were schools and students. So each student had a school ID. One school, many students. One student, one school. So create a new application. Don't use the music store or your lab. You have to make a new one. When you set up the template, choose no authentication and no unit testing. We don't need that stuff. So it just adds a whole bunch of code we don't need. So make sure you don't include those things. Then you will use the Server Explorer, just like we did today, to connect your new application to your new database. And you'll use the entity framework, just like we did today. You'll create a new data model, and you add the two tables to the project. So Visual Studio will automatically generate model classes for you. 2 models, 1 for each table. Then on your site layout, if you build, say, a schools and a students table, you need to add to the navbar links to students and schools. Whatever tables you build, I need links in the header to go there. And then you're going to do the following. So in the navbar, up here, instead of saying application name, put in a name for your project in the header. In the footer, on your layout template, include your name and student number on the footer for all pages, right? That stuff should be pretty easy. And then on the home page, Visual Studio builds this, take out this content and put in a description of your application. Okay. So something like, say, so here's the students, explain this is what the site is about. You don't have to put images in, you can leave the layout, but you should take out all of this content. Put in, hey, this is what I built. This is what it does. And then, sorry, I forgot this step. You'll use scaffolding like we did today to build 2 controllers and the 10 views that come with it. Okay, so you don't have to write your own code, just use the scaffold to generate the 2 controllers and all the views. So for example, this student has 2 tables. So there's a card table and a manufacturer table. So he used scaffolding. So I could go in and I could add, edit, delete, and view the manufacturers. I did the same thing with cars. And because there's this one-to-many relationship, the scaffolding automatically generates the dropdown. So when I add a new car, it gives me the list of manufacturers to pick. So again, if your tables are, if you're building a cricket team manager, maybe you have teams and players. Every player belongs to a team. So when you create a new player, it will automatically give me a dropdown where I pick the team.
Which way using something like code first and migrations? Or should we just stick with database first?
Up to you. If you want to try it, sure, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to do code first, then use Entity Framework to build the tables in the database, sure. Yeah. Go ahead. It's probably a little more complicated, but if you want to try it, that's fine. So you actually should be able to get the whole application up and running without writing any C# code at all. You just use Visual Studio. Use the Entity Framework wizard first for the models, then use the scaffolding for the controllers and views. Make sure you commit to GitHub. You need to make a minimum of 4 commits so I can see you're working on it actively, and create a README file. Okay? Like we did today in class, right? Here's the README. So here's this student's README. Here's how the application works. Publish the site to Azure and include the link in your README file. Again, like this student did here, here's the link so I can open it, or in my repository you can see how to get to it. Okay. There's 2 bonus opportunities. The first one is you can customize the look of it as this student did. Now there's 2 easy ways you can do this. One, you can write your own CSS if you want. The second thing is you could go and find a theme and add it on. That's fine. So that's what this student did. He used a theme. There's one rule about the theme. You need to reference where you got it. If you use another theme, you can't just add it and say, this is my CSS, right? So you can use a third party, but link to it, say where it came from. If you wrote your own CSS, put it in the README file so I know to give you the bonus marks and that there's no link to some other file, that it's your own custom CSS. Okay? Up to you. So 2 bonus marks for that, but you do need to document it clearly in the README file so I know whether you wrote your own CSS or whether you used someone else's theme. Both are okay. The other thing you can do is any other feature with .NET MVC that you want to implement on your own. So Alex, if you want to use Code First Model, because I haven't taught it to you, I'll give you a couple bonus marks if you get to work. Okay. So if there's something else in MVC, if you say, hey, I got this done, it's working, I'm going to see if I can do something else with it, I'll give you a couple more bonus marks if you can do something else. Okay, so the maximum is 28, is 32 out of 28. That's the highest mark you can get. Okay. So this project I would consider pretty much complete. It meets all the requirements. There's 2 links in the nav bar. The scaffolding works. I've already tested it. I can create, edit, delete, view manufacturers. I can create, edit, view, delete cars. And the student got bonus marks for implementing a custom theme. He's documented all of this in the README file. He's given me a link to the site. He's put his own information in the footer. So basically everything I could have asked for. And he got a bonus because he added error handling. He added some try-catch blocks into the controller in case the database queries fail. He handled that. So basically met. So even if you decide you're building the same thing as someone else, the end product should look very different. Your code should be different, and your site should look and function differently. So this actually shouldn't take you very long because you don't have to write a single line of code. You need to show that you understand how to use the tools and put the pieces together, right? The database, Visual Studio, GitHub, and Azure. Those are your 4 pieces that we need to integrate together here. Okay, but I'm not asking you to do anything we haven't done in class. All stuff we've done, all the steps are on YouTube. In some cases, they're on YouTube multiple times on the class playlist. Okay. So there's the grade. The biggest part is for using the entity framework to connect your Visual Studio project to the database and generate the models, and then for using the scaffolding, the controllers and views. So use the scaffolding and then customize them a bit. So you have until next Tuesday before class at noon to submit. In talking to some of the students in the other classes, one student who submitted today said he did it in an hour. Someone else who came to me for help yesterday said he spent 3 hours. That was it. Because you don't have to do any actual coding on this. So what I want you to have at the end of this, though, is I want you to have a project like this with the complete GitHub repository, with the gitignore and the README. So this is going to help you when you go out looking for a job. This should be something you could talk to and just show somebody in a job interview. Are there any questions about what you have to do?
So does the Git repository have to be private?
Yes.
Does they charge money for it to be?
Not if you sign up for a student account, which you can get here. So if you already have an account, but it's not a student account, you just go to, just search for GitHub Education. It takes you here. You choose Get the Pack. It will ask you for your student email and send a verification link to your email. And then you can go into your existing GitHub account. If you go into the settings, you can add your student email here. So you don't need a separate account. So verify yourself as a student through that GitHub Education and add your student email here. Then if you log out of GitHub and log back in, when you go to create a repository, it will give you the option to create a private one. You have to create it as private because otherwise you're publishing your code. If anyone else in the class finds it, they can just take your repository and submit as your own, as their work. So that's why it needs to be private. But you need to add me as a collaborator so I can see it. Plus, your repository is going to contain your database connection string, which again, you want to be private so no one goes in and deletes your database, right? If they have that credential published, somebody could go ahead and do that. Okay. So just go, you can go to that URL, education.github.com, or just search GitHub for education. It'll take you here. So when you do this, again, it gives you this, get your pack. So you click, yes, I'm a student, and it asks you for your student email. And it sends you a verification link right away. You click that link. And then add your student email to your existing account. That's all. It's easy. I think when you click here, it'll say, tell you that it'll get back to you in a few weeks. It comes right away. They just haven't updated the message on their website. Okay, so that should be an easy thing to fix. Other questions about the assignment? So don't build the exact same thing as your friend, please. Build something that is interesting to you. Yeah.
How many values do we need to have in the database just to make it work, or?
Yeah, as long as there's a few in each table, that's all you need to do. Okay. Now, the way I'll test it is I'll create a new one. So here's how I'll test it. This is, you know, I marked this one earlier today. So I'll click on each link. I'll go to create one. I'll create a record. Then I'll try the scaffold to edit it. Make sure that works, which it does. And then I'll delete. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll click both your links and make sure I can add, edit, and delete. So it'd be good you have a couple records in there, but you don't need a lot. Okay. But your tables should have at least a few columns in there. And I think I've specified this. When making the tables, yeah, every table needs at least 4 columns. So the primary key, the unique ID, and at least 3 other columns. It shouldn't just be 1 column in each table or 2 columns. So put in a few columns that make sense for what you're building.
We're going to be using this for like the next assignment after this?
That's a good question. The answer is possibly. That is a possibility that we add more functionality, that you'll be able to add more functionality. I hadn't really thought about it, but it isn't a bad idea. Because the other thing I want to consider for assignment 2, see the college student portal is all built in ASP.NET MVC, and it's all API based. So one of the things that I've talked to the IT department about before is they have some interest in having students who know ASP.NET build new services, which they could include into the college portal for everybody at the college to use. So one potential option for assignment 2 is to have you build services for the college portal. And if any of them are really well built, the IT department might actually add those services to the portal. So that's an option which I'm kicking around for assignment 2. I have to talk a bit more about that with them, but that's something we've discussed in the past. That would be a pretty nice thing to be able to put on your resume. Hey, here's my project, and there's 11,000 students at Georgian that have access to it that I did for a course assignment. So I'm going to talk to them, and if they think that's a possibility, I may actually have them come into class to talk about that with us after reading week. We'll see. If we do that, those projects would probably have to be done in teams though, because they may be too large for an individual student to be able to tackle in the amount of time we have. Or I may make it that you have the option to do either one. So we'll see, but it's a good suggestion. I don't mind that as a possibility with something that you could do more with down the road. We'll see about that. Any other questions? I have office hours tomorrow. I have office hours Thursday. I can probably squeeze in an extra office hour on Friday sometime as well. What time's your Friday class?
There's no class.
No class Friday, okay. I have class at 11. I will send an announcement out. I should think I have a meeting in the morning, but I may be able to squeeze in a bit of time before class on Friday. Okay, so you have until Tuesday to do this, which should be enough time for an assignment where you don't have to write any code at all. All right, I'll set you free.